Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dylan Lusk, Senior Meteorologist here with the National Weather Service in Peachtree City / Atlanta, Georgia. And this will be your weekly weather briefing for North and Central Georgia for the week starting November 20th, 2025. So we'll start off with our key messages and hazard outlook like normal. We'll have above normal temperatures that are going to continue into early next week. That'll include through this weekend, obviously. We could see a few record highs with that at a couple of locations. The big caveat to that may be whether or not we're able to actually get the sun to come out during the afternoon and things like that on some of these days. However, regardless of whether or not that is able to happen, we will be warm enough such that we'll at least be approaching those record highs and have a chance to potentially tie or break them. Um, After that, we do have some light rainfall that's going to be possible over North Georgia tonight. Then we're going to have another round of light rainfall that's going to be possible Friday evening into Saturday. That will mostly be over North Georgia. However, we could see a couple of showers make their way into Central Georgia, especially on Saturday. After that, we have a chance at potentially some decent rainfall. We'll see. System may bring widespread rain, possibly a few storms Monday night and then going into Tuesday and even Wednesday of next week. However, we'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second, but there is some considerable uncertainty that still remains on just how much rain we may be able to squeeze out of this system. So we'll start looking at the general weather pattern through at least Saturday. We have a system out to our west that has been drawing moisture up out of the Gulf across our area. That's part of why it's been so foggy this morning. Things have gotten a lot more moist, as you've probably noticed. That will continue into tomorrow and possibly even into Saturday as well. With that, we will see some of those scattered showers, as we talked about before, tonight across mainly northern Georgia. And then as we go into Friday and Saturday, this system will basically kind of shift and start to move to our north and northeast. And as it does that, we'll get that another round of rain that's going to be possible. Again, mostly across northern Georgia. However, we could see a couple of showers make their way down into central Georgia. With both the rainfall potentially tonight as well as the rainfall that moves through Friday into Saturday, we are expecting this generally to be light overall. So when we say light here, we're going to say generally under about a quarter of an inch. So nothing that's going to be, anything substantial, anything to worry about, and also nothing that is going to give us any kind of drought improvement or anything like that for sure. So it could be a little bit wet in the morning when you wake up on Saturday, for instance, but otherwise, rain should be generally light. Looking forward into the middle of next week, we'll call it our Thanksgiving outlook. This is kind of that average 6 to 10 day temperature and precipitation outlook that is done by the Climate Prediction Center. Um, Looking at our temperatures, they are leaning above normal during that time period. That kind of represents the fact that we'll have a cold front approaching the area, especially by Thanksgiving. But up until that point, and until that cold front moves through, our kind of warm, kind of humid air mass is expected to stick around. And with that cold front approaching next week, we have kind of leaning above normal chances of rainfall with that. So let's take a look at exactly what that might look like. Here's an example of what the weather pattern kind of could look like on Tuesday going into Wednesday. Basically, we have a strong system that is setting up basically over the entire eastern portion of the United States. And that system may end up pushing a pretty strong cold front toward our area. With that, we could see some pretty substantial moisture that gets drawn up into that system. And the way things potentially may set up, it may allow, especially over northern Georgia, for some moderate to even potentially heavy rainfall that could form. We also, with this, especially with the cold front pushing toward us, the fact that we could have some relatively warm, moist air in place, uh, we can't rule out the possibility of a few thunderstorms forming. We also can't yet rule out the possibility that we could see maybe something severe that does form. However, this is we're talking 6, 7 days in advance, so it's way too early to really discuss whether or not we could actually see any severe weather with this. But we do just kind of want to, tell you, keep an eye on things and see how this evolves in the forecast over the coming days. Let's talk a little bit more about that rainfall in particular. So here's the forecast rainfall for the next 7 days. If you look down there in Georgia, you can see that we do have those nice, pinks and purples across northern Georgia, and then the blues that extend all the way down into portions of central Georgia. So those pinks and purples, that kind of represents 1 to 2 inches of forecast rainfall across those areas. Most of this, given the current forecast, would fall on that like Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. As you go further south, those kind of blue areas represent closer to like 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So that goes into like portions of the metro and then down into central Georgia. What we want to emphasize with this again is there's actually a fair amount of uncertainty in this forecast, however. So what I've done here for this graphic is we're looking at the 90th percentile and we're subtracting the 10th percentile of rainfall amounts over that time period, that like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday time period, from one another, just to get an idea of like what are the models showing as a like realistic highest amount and a realistic lowest amount, and subtracting those two things from each other to see kind of the spread of rainfall. And when you do that, those oranges that you see on there and the little bit of red, that represents 1 to 2 inches worth of rainfall uncertainty over those areas. And you can see that's pretty much everywhere along and north of I-85. And then as you go further south from there, those yellows and things like that, that's about 1/2 inch to 1 inch of rainfall uncertainty. So best way to think of that is that's the difference across like North Georgia of getting say 2 inches of rainfall or 3 inches of rainfall versus getting like 1/2 inch of rainfall or like an inch and a half of rainfall, something like that. So that's a pretty wide range of possibilities. One is a decent rain, but certainly not anything substantial. The other is a fair amount of rain. It's not something that'll cause like major flooding issues or anything like that, but it would be a good, drought helping rainfall for sure. As we get down into central Georgia there, this is more like the difference between getting rain, like maybe 1/2 inch or 1 inch, versus getting almost nothing in terms of rainfall. So definitely want to emphasize with this, we do have high uncertainty with this system going forward, so stay tuned to the forecast. We'll definitely be able to refine this and exactly how much moisture this front is going to have available to it as we go forward in time. Next, since we're kind of talking about the drought anyway, and we're talking about rainfall, let's give an update on that drought. So for this week, we did see a very small expansion of the D2 drought across south central Georgia. That is very similar to last week. We haven't seen much in the way of precipitation, so that's not too surprising. Things are definitely very dry, especially down in central Georgia, where we've got some very, very low soil moisture values right now. Otherwise, we saw some minimal improvement of drought in North Georgia, just some shifting around of where the kind of drought areas are outlined. Part of that is due to that kind of light rainfall that we have seen over the past a little bit up there, but it hasn't been anything that's substantial in any way. So not much in the way of improvement or things going down up that way. So with all that in mind, obviously with the rainfall forecast for next week, especially the middle of next week, if we do see those higher end amounts, we absolutely could see some improvement on this map. It is not something that would eliminate the drought across Georgia, especially down in central Georgia, where things, once again, our soil moistures down there and things like that are still very dry in those areas. So we're not going to necessarily eliminate the drought with something like this, but it could go a long way towards helping us out and helping us starting to kind of whittle away at the drought areas and things like that. All right, last thing we'll talk about is the temperature forecast over the next 7 days. Again, it's going to be, as we kind of opened up with, it's going to be warm for the next couple of days, especially through the weekend across both north and central Georgia. We got temperatures that are going to be in the 70s and 80s across the area. We could see a couple of record highs where we kind of knock on the door of those records and maybe tie the records, could break them by a degree or two. We're definitely much warmer than average. In many areas, we're 10 to 15 degrees above average. As we slide into next week, we start to cool down a little bit. And then as we get that rainfall potentially moving in Tuesday and Wednesday, we see those temperatures come down even further. And then by Thursday, you can see the high temperatures, especially, we're down in the like 60s and 50s, and that's representative of that cold front pushing through and pushing some cooler air into the area for sure. Temperatures that are much more seasonable as we go into the end of November. So with all of that, that is your weekly weather briefing. If you have any questions, would like to reach out to us, contact us, you can do so through any of these mediums right here. We try to monitor them as best as possible. So as always, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.